Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is BrainBean. Today we're going to be taking a look at a budget RGB mouse pad. Now this one comes from ACGam, and I'd never heard of them before, but you don't see too many RGB mouse pads on the market, especially ones coming in about half price from the big name brands that they're trying to emulate. So I'm pretty excited to see how this one stacks up. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at this mouse pad. First impressions of the ACGam RGB mouse pad for me could easily be described as uncertain, to say the least. The mousepad comes in a plain brown cardboard box with no marking except for a simple sticker that says what's inside. Given that this is a fairly cheap budget RGB mousepad, I assume that the plain packaging is to cut down on costs, and really, as long as the product holds up, I could care less about the box, but it does make one question how much pride a company can have in their product if they don't even go to the trouble of designing some packaging. To be fair, I'm not here to review the box, so let's just get into the mousepad. As always, I like to start any review by looking at the overall construction and design. The ACGam RGB mousepad is a 14 by 10 inch mousepad, which is roughly the same size as most RGB mousepads out there, including the original, the Razer Firefly. The pad is a lot heavier than I would have anticipated, and it gives it a really sturdy feel. The pad itself is fairly thin, around the thickness of 2/4 or 0.14 inches. Despite the thinness of the pad, I was surprised that even when I tried to bend it, it feels quite sturdy. Out of the other few RGB mousepads I own, this one is by far the most solid feeling of the bunch. The underside of the mousepad has 5 good-sized rubberized pads to prevent slippage during use. Even though a lot more expensive mousepads have textured rubber running the entire length of the pad, I didn't have any noticeable issue with slippage. This could be an issue for some of you though, depending on your grip style and how much you rest your wrist on the pad. As I'm sure you figured out by now, this is a hard mouse pad. The texture on it feels pretty good, but it is a little bit rough for my taste. However, during my time testing it with different mice, they were gliding over the surface effortlessly. Just keep in mind, with a textured surface like this, you may end up chewing through the Teflon feet of your mice faster, depending on your grip and play style. At the top of the mousepad, there is a metal hub where the braided cable meets the pad with a few stylized vents cut out of it. It's fixed to the pad with a pair of screws that do look a little bit tacky depending on how picky you are. I was pretty surprised to find a braided cable on this one. At 1.8 meters, it's got enough length to position it pretty much anywhere on your desk that you would want it, and it feels nice enough that I don't see it fraying easily. Plus, you don't move your mousepad around like you would your mouse anyways, so I really don't see it needing to be super strong. But let's get to the star of the show, the RGB lighting. The LEDs stick straight out of the sides of the pad. They're unobstructed on both the top and the bottom, meaning that you'll get that classic underglow effect and be able to see the lights from across the room. The lights are plenty bright, and that's good because there's no brightness control. This could be good or bad depending on your preference, because it also makes it a bit distracting with the open LED design. There's also a fully illuminated ACGam logo in the bottom right corner of the pad, and man is it massive. I mean, really, this pad could double as a neon sign for advertising. I guess they want to make sure that you and your neighbors know that you're using an ACGam product. I can definitely see this one going one or two ways. It does look pretty cool being illuminated, so either it will bother you or it won't. The lights are all controlled directly on the pad, meaning there's no software to install, but that also means that there's very limited customizability. The lights are controlled by a touch-sensitive button at the top middle of the pad. It's a cool design, but it's also very sensitive. Any contact from one of your fingers during play will trigger the button. I don't really think having it top and center of the pad was the best placement, as it's all too easy to hit it during normal use, but you could look at it as having extra effects if you're a glass half full kind of person. As for the lights, you can choose from 9 different presets. Spectrum cycling, which by all accounts looks pretty good. The color spectrum fades through just like any premium RGB pad without any hiccups. There's a static red, purple, blue, light blue, green, and yellow. Next, there's color wave. Color-wise, the wave looks pretty good, but the animation is very choppy and quite slow. I do like that the effect goes through the illuminated logo though. And lastly is a mixture of spectrum cycling and wave, where it cycles through the colors in a spinning animation. Again, the animation is pretty choppy, but the increased speed of this one makes it less so than the color wave. Where the ACGam RGB mousepad really gets appealing is the price. This pad comes in at $28, which is almost half of what the other major brands are charging. Obviously, there are some key differences, and you'll have to ask yourself what you're looking for in an RGB mousepad. Probably the biggest consideration, and this mousepad's biggest negative, is that there's a lack of software control. You won't find the in-game integration of Razer or Corsair, and you won't have other effects like reactive effects that go off with your mouse clicks. But if you're looking for an RGB pad to accent your setup and you're just looking for one of the static colors that this pad has, or if you just want some spectrum cycling to go with an RGB setup, then for the amount that you save, I'm confident that you'll get the performance out of this little guy that you would expect from the other major brands, and at half the price. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with the build quality and certainly expected something a lot less than what I got. But really, we buy RGB mouse pads for the effects, otherwise why get one? So it'll be up to you guys to decide if this will suit your needs, or if some of those extra effects I mentioned are worth it for you to spend an extra 20 or 30 bucks. Well, that's it for the video, guys. As always, let me know in those comments down below what you'd like to see me review next, and also let me know what you think about this ACGam mousepad, and if you think that it brings enough to the table for its $28 price point. Consider giving this video a like if you enjoyed it to show your support, and if you're new here and you want to see more from me, click that subscribe button because we've got a lot more coming for you in the near future. Of course, you can also follow me on Twitter at BrainBeanGaming to stay up to date with what's going on with the channel. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.